My name is Amy Miller. This is Old versus New, Planet of the Apes. Planet of the Apes, 1968 and 2001. It's about an Air Force astronaut crash lands on a mysterious planet where there are talking apes and they dominate a race of humans, take them as slaves. Both of the Planet of the Apes are known as action and sci-fi. 1968, the original, is directed by Franklin J. Schaffner. His directorial credits are The Double Man, Peyton and Lionheart. The 2001 remake is directed by Tim Burton. His directorial roles credits are Edward Scissorhand, Corpse Bride and Beetlejuice. He had just released the film Sleepy Hollow 3 years before this film and 2 years after releasing another film called Big Fish. Before Planet of the Apes was released, he had directed in around 12 films. Planet of the Apes 1968, the financial determinants. Their annual budget was $5,800,000. In the box office they raised $32,589,624. The gross profit was $26,789,624. The gross margin was 82% and the markup was 461.89%. The Planet of the Apes was later on followed by 4 sequels and 2 short-lived television series. It broke the box office records in New York, Los Angeles and London, reaching 32,589,624. It was the most watched film in theatres in 1968 and broke the box office records because it was so popular. Nobody had ever seen anything like it. The film had the largest makeup budget in Hollywood history, exceeding $1 million, more than 1/6 of the entire budget. Trivia about this is to keep Heston from hurting his feet when running, he was fitted with rubber soles moulded to look like bare feet. Planet of the Apes 2001, financial determinants. The budget was $100 million. The box office reached 362,211,740. The gross profit was 262,211,740. The gross margin was 72%. The markup was 262.21%. Planet of the Apes was released on July 27, 2001 in 3,500 theatres across North America, earning $68,532,960 in its opening weekend. The film went on to the gross of $180,011,714 in North America and $182,200,000 everywhere else for the worldwide total of $362,211,740. Planet of the Apes was the 10th highest grossing film in North America and 9th highest worldwide of 2001. Trivia fact about this is, in order to star in the film, Tim Roth had to decline the role of Professor Severus Snape in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone in 2001. That role was eventually given to Alan Rickman. Technologies of production. The original 1968 film was shot on 35mm film using Panavision anamorphic cameras and a 2.35 aspect ratio. They used sound mix 4-track stereo. Planet of the Apes was filmed in colour. The film length was 3060 m. The remake 2001 film was shot on 35mm film using a Kodak Vision 250D 5246 cameras and a 2.35 aspect ratio. They had sound mix DTS, Dolby Digital and SDDS. The film length was 3444 m. Cinematographic process, Panavision and Anamorphic. Distribution and exhibition. The original Planet of the Apes was released in theatres on February the 8th, 1968 in the United States. The film then finally got released in the UK on the 15th of November 1968, which was 9 months after it being released in the USA. This could have been because of several things, including back in the 1960s there wasn't such thing as digital media. They would have to ship the reels from America to the UK. They would then have to be shipped over to other countries. This would delay release dates. Some films in that day and age would be held back in other countries until the studio had a bit of a better idea with what kind of reception the film would receive domestically. The trends. In the 1960s, people in this era were known to be prominent in historical drama, psychological horror and comedy, whereas in the 1950s it was all about the influence of rock and roll once Richard Rook's box office success Blackboard Jungle came out in 1955. They were a lot softer than in the 1960s, although in the era of 1950s they were watching films with aliens and creatures in it. Around 1963 and 1964, it was the worst year for the US film production in 50 years. There were only 121 features released in 1963, and the largest number of foreign films released in the US in just 1 year, 1964. There was around 361 foreign films released and only 141 US releases. In 2001, the trend of magic, wizards, goblins and mythical creatures. The first Harry Potter came out in this year, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, and the first of the Lord of the Rings came out, the Fellowship of the Ring. There were loads of critics accusing Hollywood of running out of ideas because from 2000 onwards, there has been a huge market of film remakes being made. These are just 3 of the examples that I gave you in the last slide. A trivia about Blackboard Jungle. After his film Rock Around the Clock went to #1 around the world and eventually sold an estimated 25 million copies. One about Harry Potter is Richard Harris agreed to take the role as Albus Dumbledore only after his 11-year-old granddaughter threatened to never speak to him again. One about the Lord of the Rings is, according to Guinness Book of Records, Lord of the Rings holds the record for the greatest number of false feet used in one movie, which was 60,000. Now we're on to the cast. In 1968, there was the top actors and actresses, which is Charlton Heston, Kim Hunter, Roddy McDonnell, Maurice Evans, Linda Harrison Warren, and James Daly. Charlton Heston played the main character, which is George Taylor. Kim Hunter played Zara. Roddy McDowall played Cornelius. Maurice Evans played Dr. Zaius. Linda Harrison Warren played Nova. James Daly played Honorus. In 2001, there was different actors and actresses, which are now known as really high up in the market. Mark Wahlberg's one, which was the main character for the remake. He was known as Cat. Helena Bonham Carter is known as Airy. Tim Roth is Fade. Michael Clark Duncan, Atar. Stella. Diana. Paul Giamatti is Limbo. Got a few star comparisons now. The main character star comparison. One thing that's different about the original to the remake is that the characters all have different names. Like the main character in the original, he is called George Taylor. In the remake, he is called Leo Davison, known as Capt. Charlton Heston has appeared in over 100 films over the course of 60 years. In 1995, he started establishing his own political action fundraising committee and jumped into the internal politics of the NRA, National Rifle Association. Heston won an Oscar in the film Ben-Hur for Best Actor Award in 1958. After being diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, Heston then retired both from acting and being the NRA president in 2003. Mark Wahlberg is still an American actor, producer, model and former rapper. He is known as Marky Mark in his earlier years, and he became famous for his 1991 debut as frontman with the band Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. Wahlberg has starred in around 40 films. In The Fighter, he was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Picture. His latest award was the MTV Movie Awards that he won for the film's Head. A star comparison about the main women in the film. Linda Harrison, after doing the original Planet of the Apes film, starred in its 1970 sequel Beneath the Planet of the Apes, opposite James Francescus. She also had a cameo in Tim Burton's 2001 remake, Planet of the Apes. She also played Susan in 1985 film Cocoon and in 1988's film Cocoon: The Return. You could also apply the feminist theory to this film because it shows how different it is from the 1960s to the 2000s. When Linda Harrison plays the woman character Nova in the Planet of the Apes, she is really quiet and keeps herself to herself. She doesn't show her independence or stick up for herself. Whereas when Estella Warren plays her in the remake version, she's really loud and shows her independence by sticking up for herself. This shows how different it was from one era to another. Estella Warren, on the other hand, carried on acting in movies up until 2005. She has starred in films like Driven, Kangaroo Jack and The Crawler. Before acting, she had careers in both synchronised swimming and fashion modelling. The star comparison for Dr. Zaira, also known as Airy. Kim Hunter had an acting career before being in the Planet of the Apes. She starred in the original Broadway production, playing the role of Stella Koswalski. After being in the Planet of the Apes, she done 2 of their sequels, and she also appeared on several radio and TV soap operas, and she received a Daytime Emmy Award nomination in 1980 as Best Actress. She was acting from 1943 to 2002, when she sadly passed away. On the other hand, Helena Bonham Carter was starred in over 70 different films. She had worked with Tim Burton in quite a few films, like Johnny Depp's Sweeney Todd, Alice in Wonderland, Corpse Bride, and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. She won the Best Actress Award in 2007, Evening Standard British Film Awards for her performances in Sweeney Todd and Conversations with Other Women, along with another Best Actress Award at the 2009 Empire Awards, and she received the Britannia Award for British Artist of the Year from BAFTA LA in November 2011. Social, political and regularity factors are in the 1968 the Planet of the Apes film feminism and civil rights movement was a big issue within these issues. It meant there were issues surrounding slavery in both of the Planet of the Apes. There is slavery happening. The apes take humans as prisoners living in cages, and then they would be used as slaves. This film was meant to portray when black people were treated like slaves and that they got treated differently to the rest of the humans. It's to show that everyone should get treated fairly. In the original Planet of the Apes, George Taylor was trying to prove that he was just as good and intelligent as all those apes, and ends up helping most of them. In the remake, Cat proves that he is just as good as them, if not better, and the apes help him and he helps them. The original film also shows conflict between the apes and the humans. They show that there is a lot of tension between them. This could represent the conflicts and tension between the West and Russia, and also this film was brought out when the Vietnam War was happening, which is what is basically happening in the film. There is a war and conflict happening between the humans and the apes. In the 2001 remake version of the Planet of the Apes also shows slavery, and the remake version is also a lot darker than the original. This shows that the age was more important than the entertainment in this film, as the original was rated PG, there was swearing included, etc. And the remake was rated a 12 certificate, which means that there was moderate language, some nudity and moderate violence in the movie. This shows how much things have changed from the 60s to now. Things like violence are put into account now because there has been cases like killings which people relate to films they have watched. So to stop this from happening, they put an age on the film so it should only be shown to young adults, etc. Synergies between the films. The Planet of the Apes films were based on a French novel, Le Planète des Singes, written by Pierre Boulle. The novel is more like the original than the remake, as there are a lot of similarities between them. In the original, the main character is wearing clothes that you would wear if he was living in the jungle. He changes his clothes during the film. He changes clothes, which is also different from the remake, as in the remake he is still wearing his astronaut suit because he had just come up off a spaceship. He does not change his clothes throughout the film. The original was filmed and made very bright with light colours, whereas the remake was made up of dark colours, mainly blues and blacks. Even during the day they made it dark. This is the same as the DVD cases. The original was orange and the remake one was blue. The endings of the films were both different. In the original, the ending was George Taylor and Nova are going along the beach, and then he spots the Statue of Liberty in front of him. In the remake, they go into a cave where the spaceship was, and all the apes march up to them. A spaceship then comes over and lands with the monkey inside. He then gets into the spaceship and goes back to the past. In the original, all the humans are taken quicker than the remake by the apes. In the remake, there is more of a build-up to it. All of the characters' names are different in the remake to the way they were in the original. For example, the original main character's name was George Taylor, and in the remake his name was Leo Davison, known as Capt. Vertical and horizontal integration. Both of the original and the remake were produced and distributed by 20th Century Fox. The producer in the original was Arthur P. Jacobs. He also produced the sequel before dying in 1970. He produced many films such as Tom Sawyer, Dr. Dolittle, Mr. Chips and Play It Again, etc. The remake was produced by two famous producers, Richard D. Zanuck and Ralph Winter. Richard D. Zanuck worked with Tim Burton 6 times, producing Planet of the Apes, Big Fish, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Sweeney Todd, and Alice in Wonderland and Dark Shadow. After being fired from his dad, he joined Warner Bros. As executive vice president. Ralph Winter is a Hollywood film producer. He has helped to produce blockbuster films such as X-Men, Fantastic Four and Star Trek series, as well as I, Robot and the remake of the Planet of the Apes. He is also a partner in Thomas Wintercook, which produces television commercials and represents a number of commercial directors. The Planet of the Apes 1968 and 2001 overview. I think that the 2001 Planet of the Apes is a really good remake. It's not too different. It's not too different from the original. A few things happen in the remake that don't happen in the original. Although I prefer the remake more than the original, I think the original was really well filmed and there were quite a few things that happen mostly in older films, like tinted film on the reel of the film. At the beginning, hand-created music, old camera and lip-syncing. I feel that the remake was more realistic. When someone got shot in the original, there was no bullet wounds, and when they were in the ship at the beginning you could tell it was a simulator, whereas in the remake it looks really realistic, but I understand that there's more technology out now than there was in the 60s. Overall, I feel that the remake 2001 is much better to my opinion and was better and more exciting to watch, but the original 1968 should not be dismissed. Overall, I rate Planet of the Apes original 3 stars and the remake 4 stars.